Inconsistency is Mario's bread and butter. As series creator Shigeru Miyamoto once said, "A delayed game is..." no wait, that's the wrong quote. I see the Mario cast like a troupe of actors. That's why Bowser can kidnap Peach and try to take over a kingdom in one game and still be invited to races and parties in the next. There is no real Mario timeline, there is barely a consistent portrayal of iconic locations like Peach's castle. But even if the size of Peach's home seems to differ in every entry, it still is not even close to the inconsistency of the location that should not be too far away: Toad Town. It's said to be the capital city of the Mushroom Kingdom, and yet it is easily the most inconsistent location the Mario franchise has to offer. And perhaps part of that is because Toad Town is actually not a Nintendo created location. The first ever unnamed appearance of Toad Town hails from a Japan-only anime known as Super Mario Bros. Peach Hime Kyushutsu Dai Sakusen, which translates to Princess Peach Rescue Operation. It was released in 1986, when Luigi still looked like this, and retells the story of the first Super Mario Bros. Game, complete with a depiction of the Toads being attacked while living in a mushroom town not too far away from Peach's castle. This anime is actually the oldest film adaptation of a video game in world history, and didn't just mark the debut of Toad Town, but also Peach's castle, female Toads, and it was the first time Bowser ever spoke. 4 years later, Toad Town would return, once again in the form of TV shows, as the Adventures of Super Mario Bros. Free cartoon shows Peach's castle surrounded by a small town, where Mario, Luigi and a bunch of Toads live. Only after these 2 iterations would Toad Town finally debut in a video game, but it still wouldn't be developed by Nintendo. Super Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars, developed by Square, would mark the first time players would actually explore the town, although it was still titled Mushroom Kingdom here, or as the manual calls it, Mushroomsville. Design-wise, this is easily one of the most realistic portrayals Toad Town has ever had, with a quite bleak and medieval vibe going on. The facilities of the town are still limited, with little more than an item shop and an inn to rest at, with arguably the most noteworthy thing that happens in Toad Town here being an invasion of Shy Moors or Shysters, a version of Shy Guys, alongside their leader Clay Morton, formerly known as Mac. Kinda interesting actually, how in the remake of the game, it seems like these enemies were shifted from being knife focused to sword focused, with their names now drawing inspiration from claymores. No clue why. Anyway, with Super Mario RPG out and about, Toad Town is officially part of the Mario video game world, which means it's time for it to reappear and look completely different. Paper Mario features Toad Town heavily as a sort of hub world, and is the first time the actual name is used, something that will become standard from here on out. This version of the town is a lot less medieval and gritty and way more upbeat and cheerful and made of paper, but that's besides the point. Seeing as this is now a hub area you revisit frequently, the amount of facilities is heavily increased, including 2 item selling shops, the Friendly Cook Taste Tea, a batch stand, a train station, a dojo, a harbor, a bar and many more residential homes. This is the kind of Toad Town that makes it feel like the Mushroom Kingdom's capital, still right next to Peach's castle, and we also know Mario's house isn't far away from here. Beneath the city, we find the Toad Town tunnels, a sewer system which Mario can use to travel to certain destinations. All in all, I think it's safe to say this iteration of Toad Town is one that suits the Mario franchise much more than the one we see in Super Mario RPG, and it's understandable why this version has more or less become the standard for what to think of when Toad Town makes an appearance. Is what I would say if its next appearance wouldn't change everything up again. Even though Mario & Luigi's Superstar Saga is set in the Bean Bean Kingdom, the opening of the game teaches you the basics while still in the Mushroom Kingdom. The official strategy guide refers to the place as Mushroom Kingdom's Plaza. In the remake this falls under Peach's Castle, but in the original game this is Toad Town Square, without the space between the words for some reason. Now, I will admit, in Japanese this place isn't referred to as Toad Town at all, so perhaps considering it to be that is incorrect. But at the same time, this place is incredibly inconsistent as is, a little name deviation isn't out of character. I mean, call it what you want, this is a sort of town square next to Peach's castle where Toads live. It's Toad Town as far as I'm concerned. Although we don't see any facilities, we don't enter any houses, we don't see anything really. It's mostly an empty square with 2 fountains and a few hedges. Not exactly Toad Town's finest moment to say the least. The next game in the Mario & Luigi series will be quite a redemption arc for the Mushroom Capital, however. Partners in Time brings Toad Town back properly, name and all, and even technically becomes the first iteration of it, as we visit Toad Town in the past in this game. Sure, it is completely destroyed by a shroom invasion and barely has any life left inside, but at least it is, or was, an actual town at some point this time around. Only 2 residents still remain behind, 2 elderly toads who run the item store, meaning this is once again not the perfect Toad Town to compare to past iterations. What does stand out though is that the town is inside a forest now, seemingly not necessarily close to Peach's castle. In fact, another location is nearby, which has in some bizarre way become one of the most consistent parts of Toad Town. In Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario and Partners in Time, Toad Town leads to or is not too far away from Star Hill, the place where wishes come true. It's a bit of a bizarre situation when you think about it. Star Hill has randomly made appearances in one game of every single Mario RPG series, and every single time it happened just in that one game that also featured a significant Toad Town. Very strange coincidence, if you can call it that. But Toad Town and Star Hill are not intrinsically linked, it turns out. Going forward, Toad Town would continue to make appearances, while Star Hill has not been seen since. And it's arguably Toad Town's biggest or at least highest profile showing that would be up next. Super Mario Galaxy's intro sequence has the player walking towards Peach's castle as Bowser attacks during a special event known as the Star Festival. Now, technically the game refers to this location as Castle Gardens, but come on. This isn't a garden, it's a town. Next to Peach's castle, it's Toad Town, making its debut and only appearance in a mainline Super Mario game. Now, it's far from prevalent, we never return here during our actual adventure, only when collecting 120 power stars do you come back, but it's still cool to see this place in a 3D Super Mario game. That said, it's not at all consistent to what it was in the Mario RPG titles. There's now a lake next to both the castle and the town, which appears to be just one street, and seemingly does not continue beyond this first line of houses, making this one of the smallest versions of the capital yet, ironically enough in the biggest game. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of insane that Toad Town appears in 2 games on the Nintendo Wii, one being a big 3D Mario adventure and the other being a kart racer, and yet it appears much bigger in the kart racer of all games. Because yes, Mario Circuit Wii Edition sees us racing around Peach's castle, as is tradition, which is this time surrounded by a village which has to be Toad Town, despite being unnamed. It is probably the largest version of it so far, with a ton of seemingly residential buildings, continuing beyond even the first line we race past. It also returns the style of the houses to something a bit more realistic, I guess is the word. Partners in Time had mushroom-themed houses, while Mario Galaxy ditched that, but did go for something more cartoony than what Mario Kart Wii does here. Now, obviously there's not a whole lot that can be said about this place beyond this, it doesn't really function as a town after all, but I do want to point out that it returns in the same fashion for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games. The Dream Ski Cross event is held at Mario Circuit Wii, and of course, Toad Town had to feature them. And if you're wondering why the town isn't covered in snow for the occasion, that's because the snow is fake and generated by machines, so only the track itself is winter white. When the Mario and Luigi series returned for a third installment on Nintendo DS, of course Toad Town couldn't be left behind. In Bowser's Inside Story, the town again plays a prominent role, suffering from the Blorbs infection as well as an invasion later in the game by Fawful. But that's not why we're here, we want to know what this place looks like and what it has inside. What I personally find the most interesting about this version of Toad Town is how strongly different it is from the version we see in Partners in Time. Back then, all houses were mushroom shaped, but that isn't the case here, and the forest around it is also gone, with Peach's castle instead close as you would expect it. Also new and unique is a fountain with a Peach statue on the town square, and streetlights with a mushroom motif. Facility-wise, this version of Toad Town has a mall, which may be dying in America, but are apparently getting newly introduced in the Mushroom Kingdom. It houses all kinds of shops, as you would expect, as well as the Toadly Clinic, a hospital crucial in the fight against the Blorbs. About time the Mushroom Kingdom introduced one of these, I would say. In a rare bit of consistency between games, this version of Toad Town also brings back the underground system as seen in Paper Mario. The Toad Town caves, as they're known here, function pretty much the same as they do in Paper Mario, although they of course also look a tad different. But it's cool to see that Toad Town having this accessible sewer system underneath is to be considered canon enough that it has appeared in several Mario spin-off titles. But even if Bowser's inside story showed Toad Town is alive and kicking, it would be a very silent decade for Mushroom Kingdom's capital coming up. After 2009, when the DS game was released, Toad Town would not appear in any game for more than a decade. Only when Paper Mario the Origami King released in 2020 would we see Toad Town in all its glory again, not in a small way either. Just like in the Nintendo 64 original, the town is once again the hub area, but it appears initially abandoned after Ollie's takeover. Over the course of the game, the resident Toads slowly return to their homes, but we never see any more outlandish facilities like a mall or a dojo here, unfortunately. From an architectural standpoint, this is an interesting iteration though, as this Toad Town mixes both the mushroom style homes with regular designs, as we saw in Mario Circuit for example. It feels almost intentional, as if to mean to create a uniform look for Toad Town, which would be about damn time. Not that I expect Toad Town to now suddenly always look like this, I mean more that in the past it didn't always feel as if the previous designs of Toad Town had been kept into consideration, and I get the feeling that may have happened a bit more here. And while this is currently the most recent game to feature Toad Town, the story of the Mushroom Kingdom's capital actually is currently a full circle. Because when the Super Mario Bros. Movie released in 2023, Toad Town was a part of it, returning to the medium that debuted it in the first place. Now, this version of Toad Town, like almost everything in the movie, isn't even trying to resemble anything from the games, now being larger, busier and more hectic, as well as reverting to all mushroom-styled housing, which has at the end of the day only ever appeared in Partners in Time. The town is also now heavily elevated, using all kinds of pipes to get around, and really is just filled with a bunch of random crap, to put it bluntly, while in the games it has always been quite peaceful and calm. I will say though, no Toad Town has ever felt more like the capital of the Mushroom Kingdom than this one. And that has been the entire confusing and inconsistent history of Toad Town. Would you like to see the capital of the Mushroom Kingdom more often? And how do you feel about the consistency in the Mario series in general? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.